The last 5 letters of history spell story, and that's exactly how history should be taught. Numbers and dates have no soul. Such presentations fall flat, for history is alive and relevant. Welcome to Threads from the National Tapestry, stories from the American Civil War. This series will feature events and people from that period, and will strive to make you feel as if you were there to show that history is indeed a story for this special time of year, a story and a hopeful message. It was winter, and contrary to the World War II classic, "I'll Be Home for Christmas," few that belonged to the Union Army of the Potomac and Confederate Army of Northern Virginia would be able to share any holidays with loved ones that December. It had only been days since bloody Union defeat at the December 13th Battle of Fredericksburg, Virginia. The contesting armies had gone into winter quarters. Separated by only the icy blue ribbon that was the Rappahannock River, both forces licked their wounds and counted down the days that remained in the war-torn year that was 1862, after some 5,300 Confederate casualties in victory and well over 12,000 in defeated blue. One might think the proximity of the two armies would lead to constant shelling and volleys of gunfire. And yes, there were exchanges, both verbal and by weapons, each blast interrupting a colorless landscape made worse by bitter cold and blankets of snow. And yet, as men in countless wars have done, would do, and will do, their nearness prompted something else. Something that, despite the tragedy of Civil War, was magical and memorable. Common soldiers in Union blue and Confederate butternut and gray. Men who spoke the same language, believed in the same God, and who as human beings shared the same dreams and fears, seemed to forget they were enemies. And so quite unofficially up and down the lines, there were unsanctioned ceasefires along the banks of the river in full view of the enemy. They struck up conversations, and once on speaking terms, traded coffee for tobacco, tobacco for coffee, and even at times definitely without permission crossed the river and visited one another. And then one afternoon the fraternization turned into something far grander. So moving that historian still right of that afternoon, it took place probably in January, still in the dead of gloomy winter. No question, after their bloody repulse back in December, Union morale was low. Zurchians within that army were the worst of the war. So, in an attempt to mend broken spirits, one Union band took action. With brass instruments as their, if you will, weapons, they chose to serve up the powerful pus that was and still is music. It was late in the day, the sun sinking in the southwestern sky, and in my mind's eye, that setting sun provided the perfect celestial backdrop for what was about to occur. I know many lose themselves in summer sunsets, but to me, those in late fall and winter present cosmic canvases that are far more colorful. Again, as I imagined, the horizon was splashed with colors of ripe peaches and oranges, brilliant golds, fiery fuchsia, and radiant reds, with the heavens serving as stage lighting for the band and its music. That Union band began to move from one federal encampment to another. In each they played martial airs. They played patriotic songs which included the Battle Hymn of the Republic, Hail Columbia, and Father Abraham, We Are Coming. At one point during the unscheduled concert, the musicians were made aware of unexpected guests. Sitting along the opposite bank, perched like crows on a telegraph line, hundreds of Confederates had taken seats and were listening. Then, during one break in the music, one grizzled Southern veteran rose and shouted across the river, "I play some iron." And to that request, the Union band broke into Southern tunes that of course included Dixie and the lively tune that was the Bonnie Blue Flag. And as they did, something wondrous took place, when by now thousands of common soldiers from both armies rose as one and with cheers and laughter lifted their voices in one great sing-along. Finally, with evening drawing nigh, under a sunset that had darkened into lavenders, violets, and purples, the band decided to play one last song. They played Home, Sweet Home, and thousands of men at war with one another from decisions and circumstances of which they had absolutely no cant. Roll began to sing the tune's lyrics, which at that moment meant more to them than ever before in their existence. Or should I say they tried to sing for voices cracked and lyrics were swallowed, drowned by tears? As historian Bruce Ken pinned, there wasn't a dry eye on the Rappahannock, with the sun now beneath the horizon and the last notes hauntingly rolling across the landscape. Men began to drift back to their camps. back to think of loved ones at home, and stabbed by questions of how much longer the war would go on, how much longer they would be away, with heavy thoughts and hearts, wondering when campaigns would be renewed and battles fought that may very well cause them to be no more from that late afternoon in the first month of 1863. Today, if we allow ourselves even for just a moment to break free from the prison that can be the present tense, we can learn from the past. Enemies some 162 years ago shared a common moment and were reminded that even in Civil War, they were all Americans. Well, today, thank God, we are not engaged in open civil war. But at a time when holiday magic is in the air and in the midst of a season that promises miracles, how wonderful it would be if each of us could declare a truce, declare an armistice in not only the civil wars we find ourselves entangled with others, but find peace in the civil wars that rage within ourselves. And so it is Christmas. It's the holidays. And in the spirit of giving, I have wishes for all who listen in addition onto the material gifts we will give and receive. I hope there's a few surprises that each of us may find in our stockings, which I'm sure will be hung with great care, added to the little treats that are always enclosed. I hope we find a few other, if you will, gifts, treasures that as human beings I hope we already possess. But you know, these gifts are such that one can never have enough. And yes, these so-called treats fit all sizes and can be used over and over. Of course, I hope we find love, but I also hope we find patience, tolerance to be extended to not only others, but particularly to those who are closest to us. And in that same stocking, empathy, appreciation, open-mindedness, and regardless of age, one more thing, something truly special, neatly wrapped and begging to be opened, a discovery that as when we were children, we are filled with the sheer joy, innocence, and wonder that is Christmas and this holiday season. From all of us at Third Wheel Media and yours truly, may your holidays be warm and bright, your new year happy and healthy. And throughout the coming new year, may each of you spend special times with those you love and who in turn love you. That is, and will always be the greatest gift we'll ever receive.